Hi everyone. So we are expecting a little bit of a thunderstorm, and I am back in the house. So I'm kind of back in my bedroom again, and I have my lovely library behind me and my stash of projects over here. And I just put Ina down for a nap, so cross your fingers that she stays asleep while we do our thing today. Let's see, important things. Slow yarn crawl is still going on. We have 2 months left, and I did a little bit of work on the website today. So let's see, I added in some slow crawl swag. So if you go to that slowcrawl.com, then hey, you can check out the swag. And what else did I do? Sent out a newsletter for the slow crawl. Don't send them out very often, but I managed to get one done. We do still have our 35 shops, and everybody's still doing the couch crawl, in addition to some of them being available for in-store shopping. So you just have to check your hours. Some of our stores are closed around the holiday, July 4th. So you'll need to make sure you check that before you go out. Let's see. Oh, Tina is doing her Ben Golden Shrug, and she's putting up a new video soon for the next part of that. So she's doing a knit along with that, and then she is planning to do a knit along and a crochet along with her veggie yarns in July. And there's more info about that on our Black Sheep Fiber Emporium website. So if you go to blacksheepfiberemporium.com, you can find out more there. I'm also doing the cals, so we are in the middle of our sock cal. So here's a pair of socks. Hang on, I got several pairs of socks. Here's another pair of socks, pair of socks. And I actually finished my tiny socks because remember I cheated and I cast on socks for Ina. Tiny little socks for Ina, and they fit her. And they have just a little give, which is exactly what I wanted. So they'll fit her this fall and into the winter. So here's her tiny little socks. And I haven't washed them yet, which is why the ends are still hanging out. And we'll talk about that again in a little bit. And then when we're done with that, I have every intention of doing a knit along with my Elroy shawl. And I'm going to use this, which is Delightful Handmaiden. This one happens to be the sea lace, so it's silk and sea cell. And I really like this stuff. It's so soft. So I got it wound. I know I'm ahead of the game on that one. I got it wound. Alrighty, let's see. So last time I think I was talking about the sock ruler, but hey, I found it and I stuck it in the bag so I won't forget it. And if you don't have a copy of my book, Hoppy Feet, then this is a great book to have because I do go through all of the heels and the toes, and each sock in here is an exploration of heels and toes and techniques. So that's fun. Okay. Having said all of that, today we're going to talk about, here's my sock ruler again. We're going to talk about the gusset on the sock, which is this portion right here. It's the gusset, so that's the portion that fits down around the ball of your foot and kind of the base of your ankle right here. It's this gusset. And we're also going to talk about the toe. And I did cast on another pair of socks so that I can talk about what I do at the end of a toe and how to Kitchener. So I have all of that set up and ready to go. And if you don't have one of these sock rulers, I really like my sock ruler. And in fact, I was very sad that I couldn't find it there for a while. But it's really fabulous for like measuring your sock as you go so that you get pretty accurate measurements of how long. So like this one is, it's like 5 and a half, 5 3/4. Depends a little bit on 5 and a half, 5 3/4. Depends a little bit on the set of your heel, but really nice for going along because you can measure from the cuff to the heel, or you can measure as you're knitting down. You can measure from the heel to the toe, so you know how far you've gone. Really useful. And some people actually like write on the back of this. They put you know, their usual like sock measurements on here for people that they knit for. I can't bring myself to do that, so I just have like a little list. And and I cut my finger like really badly last Thursday, really badly. But I've discovered I can still knit, so I might knit a little funny today, but yeah, that's because I cut my finger. And we're calling this my ow ow. Ina calls this my ow ow. It's very entertaining when she, you know, points at the Band-Aid and says ow ow, ow ow. Yes, I know, that's mommy's ow ow. Okay, so having said all of that, let's see, I'm gonna load up all my socks here and let's just put them out of the way. I am going to change the angle here of our video and I will show you a gusset on the sock, and I'm going to talk about a few things that I do to make sure that I don't end up with holes at those corners, so that, because you know, holes in your socks are bad. We don't want holes in our socks. We try really hard not to put holes in our socks unless we're making lace socks, and that's totally different then. So, all right, give me just a minute. And down we go. Let me put out, here we go, here we go. Okay. There's our tiny socks, so we can see them. Little tiny socks. There we go. Okay, let's talk about socks. So when we are making socks and we're doing any kind of heel really, there's always a point at which you need to pick up stitches, or you need to close a gap or close a hole, because we really don't want a hole. And this is the point right here at which there would be a hole, because this is where we've picked it up. But I do a couple of things when I pick up my stitches along my heel flap. First, I always go in and I twist this stitch. You can see that it's twisted. You can see the base of it has been twisted. So twisted, 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 all the way along. I knit through the back loop and I twist this edge stitch, because that helps to tighten it up so that I don't have as much of a gap along here. Plus, when you are twisting that stitch, then it helps to close the base of that stitch as well. So it's just two things along that edge that are helping to close it, to make sure that we don't have a really open edge here by knitting through that back loop. So we're closing up the bottom and we're tightening up the edge at the same time when we do that. So every time I pick up stitches along the side of my heel flap, you can see on this side too, I pick them up and I knit through the back loop so that it twists the edge of that heel flap. I always do that. It's something I started doing within my first 3 or 4 pairs of socks, and it's something that I never stopped doing, because it really does make a difference in keeping your socks from having holes along that edge where you are picking up those stitches. Now, the other thing that I do is when I come to this corner here, I don't want there to be a hole. So I do my absolute best to make sure that there's no hole. And usually what that means is, so for example, I had 9 repeats on this little heel flap here, where I, slipped one, knit one across, and then slipped one, purled on the back side. So I had 9 repeats of that to do this slip stitch heel. So I knew that I needed to pick up at least 10 stitches, but I actually picked up 12, and I picked up 2 stitches here in the corner, and I immediately decreased them. So whether it was a knit 2 together or a slip slip knit, I just immediately knit a stitch together from this column and this column to help close up that hole. And then I went ahead and knit those 11 picked up stitches. And what I do is I always think of it as, well, I've got 9 repeats, so I'm picking up at least 9 stitches, and then an extra at the top and an extra at the bottom, so that I make sure that I don't have any holes along there. So that is always my plan when I am doing these heels. And I'll show you, look, we've got all kinds of socks to play with today, right? So here you can see the same thing here. You can clearly see that I've twisted my stitches, and you can see that I don't really have much of a hole. Now there's a little bit of a stretch here, but it's not really a hole, because I have picked up stitches. And part of that's because I was using different yarns, and so there's some tension issues there. But get in here, stretch this one out, and again, looks pretty good. You can see the twisted stitch, And you can see that there's not really a hole because I've picked up those extra stitches in the top corner. So that is my recipe for making sure that I do not have holes in my socks. As I twist those stitches after I pick them up, I twist them, I knit them through the back loop as I'm going. And you'll see, it's just the same thing every time, because this is all my basic sock recipes. So I've twisted my stitches. It's kind of a pretty little edge too on that heel. And then I've picked up extra stitches to make sure there's no hole there. Okay. So once I've done that, then every other round what I do is I decrease. And on this side, I do I have to think a minute. Which way am I knitting? This way. On this side, I do a knit two together, and on this side, I do a slip slip knit. So that as it goes down, it decreases back to the original number of stitches. Now, if your foot is a little bit narrower than your leg, you could decrease a couple of extra stitches here. So you could cast on and knit a few more stitches in your leg, and then decrease a couple of extra rounds in your gusset down here and get rid of a few extra stitches so that you have a little narrower foot that fits a little bit tighter. So if you find that you have a very large calf and you need some extra space up here, that's something that you can do, is you can cast on extra stitches in the leg portion and then decrease a few away down here. And if you're going, toe up, it's the same idea. You would cast on for your foot, and then as you work your way up and you do your heel, you would increase a little bit more. So once you hit, knitting in the round again, maybe you'd increase 2 or 4 stitches to give yourself a little more room up in that calf so that it fit just a little bit better. So there we go. That's our little discussion about gussets. So on the gussets, I decrease every other round as I'm moving down, and then I knit my sock, and I knit my foot to the length that it's supposed to be. So here I have another sock because, I already finished one pair of socks for Ina and I was enjoying it and the yarn because this Lilliput is lovely stuff. It's really nice to work with. And it's very soothing. It's very soothing for me right now making socks. So I went ahead and I just made another pair, and what I did was I just sized it up. So this sock here is about a ½ inch around bigger. It's 4 stitches bigger than this sock. So all I did was instead of casting on 40 for my little sock, I cast on 44 for my larger sock. And then I knit to 4½ inches before I started my toe. This one I knit to 4¼ inches before I started my toe. And I also did 1 extra repeat, I think, on my heel flap. So I picked up a few extra stitches as well. So that just gave me a little more room. And it's just these little things that change the size of your socks, right? So now I have the socks that pretty well fit Ina right now and should fit in the fall. And then I will have a pair of socks that will fit her again later on. And she'll just have like matching socks for several sizes, since that's what I seem to be doing. Okay, so here I knit my heel flap, I knit through the back loop and twisted my stitches. I picked up those extra stitches at the corner to make sure that I closed the gap. So you see, even when I press on this, it's really hard to make that hole up here in the side. And then my gusset, here, this is my slip slip knit line, and I've decreased every other row until I got back to my original number of stitches, which was 44 stitches. And then I just knit until my sock measured 4½ inches, and then I started my toe. And I do a pretty standard toe, and I haven't finished this one just yet because I was going to finish this with you. So when I do my toe, I knit the first stitch and then I decrease the next set of stitches, and then I knit across, and then I decrease here and leave 1 stitch to knit, so that I always have 2 stitches in between my 2 decreases. And you don't have to have that. I just like the look of this toe. It's a very standard toe. It's a very normal toe that you might run into. Sometimes there's only 1 stitch here. Sometimes there's no stitches here. That just tightens the shape of the toe up a little bit. But I just really love this standard toe, so I tend to use this one. Now the other thing I do is I'm about ready to Kitchener stitch, but what I like to do is something that the Yarn Harlot mentioned one time, which is that in order to avoid that kind of weird pointy toe, I always like to go in and I do 2 rounds of decreases back to back. So as I'm working the decreases on my toe, usually I do a decrease round, I do a knit round, I do a decrease round, I do a knit round. But as I get to the very end of my toe and I'm just about ready to Kitchener stitch, what I have to do is, to avoid that weird, pointy corner on my toe, I go ahead and I do back-to-back decreases. So you can see here, I've already done a decrease on the round before because you can see my 2 stitches that are laying here together. So I'm just going to go ahead and do another decrease. And I apologize if this is wiggly, but I'm trying to do this and stay on camera. There we go. So that will give me 4 stitches on this needle. And because I'm just about ready to Kitchener stitch, I'm going to lay down that other needle. And if you were doing magic loop or using flyers, then you wouldn't have to do that. You just keep going. And then I'm going to do my decrease. So I've done back-to-back decreases, remember. And I should have 8 stitches left here on this needle. I'll turn my sock and I have to finish my round. So again, you can see that decrease right here, and I'm just doing back-to-back rounds of decreases so that it makes my toe a little rounder and a little less pointy. And it was something that, gosh, I read years and years ago on the Yarn Harlots blog, and here I've lost a stitch, but that's okay. It didn't get too far away. So those back-to-back decreases I read about on the Yarn Harlots blog years and years ago. And I just like the way that my sock toes looked because they weren't quite as pointy. So here you can see that I had a stitch that slipped that dropped down, and now I have this hanging loop back here. So if I'm going to fix my stitch, I'm just going to pick up my loop and put it up on my needle. And then I'm just going to lift my stitch up and over, and that is the action of a knit stitch anyway. And because I am down to the Kitchener stitch portion, I'm going to take 2 of my needles out. So I'll just finish out my round. So there we go. And no worries, no more dropped stitches to be found. And again, over here, you can see where I have my decrease. There's the 2 stitches. There's 1 and 2 that are nestled in together. So I'm just going to knit 2 together and then knit 1. And now I'm ready to Kitchener stitch my toe. Now, if you really, really, really hate Kitchener stitching, you could do a star toe instead. And then when you get to the end of a star toe, all you do is cut your yarn and then run your yarn through whatever stitches are left on the needle and then cinch it up so that essentially you're making just a very tight, sort of like a hat top, if you want to think of it that way. But I love Kitchener stitch. I know I'm kind of weird, but I do. I love to Kitchener stitch. I find it very rhythmic and very soothing. And I'm just going to cut my yarn off so that I have, enough tail to do my Kitchener stitch, and I still have quite a lot of yarn left, so I have plenty of yarn to make my next sock. All right, and now let's Kitchener stitch. So I have to find, I have one needle that I have one tapestry needle. So you need a tapestry needle if you're going to Kitchener stitch, and you want a blunt-ended tapestry needle. You do not want a super sharp one. So I don't even know if you can see the difference in these, but this one here is so sharp. It's very pointy pokey. This one's very blunt. So you do not want the sharp one because we want to scoop our loops. We do not want to pierce our yarn. Sometimes you want to pierce your yarn, which is why you have both. And we'll see if I can manage to, oh, good. I managed to get my yarn threaded. Sometimes I have issues with that, especially with the Band-Aid. Okay, to Kitchener stitch. Let me get the rest of these socks out of the way. Up here. To Kitchener stitch. Get my yarn out of the way too. You want to set your yarn up so that it is on your right-hand side. You want to set your needles up so that the yarn is coming from the back needle so that you're ready to go into the front needle. And the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your needle and you're going to insert it into the loop as if to purl, and then pull that tight. Then you'll take your needle and you'll insert it into the back stitch as if to knit. So remember, when you knit, you go from the front left side and out the back right side. So it's the same idea here. And now I scoop both my needles down so that as I work, I can pull my stitch off. I'm going to repeat that. So we purled, knit. Now we're going to insert as if to knit, pop that stitch off, insert as if to purl. Purl, knit, knit, purl, and this one comes off. Now we're going to insert this as if to purl, the next one as if to knit. So we did knit, purl, purl, knit. This one pops off. Snug it down. And you do want to snug your yarn a little bit as you go, because as I found, it's more difficult to snug that up at the very end than it is to just gently snug it down as you go. So we are going to insert as if to knit and purl and purl and knit. And I'm going very slow, hopefully slow enough so you can see what's happening. So there we go. And then knit and purl and purl and knit. And we just keep going all the way down the sock. And what you'll see is that it starts to form a line of knit stitches. And all we're doing is we are following the path of the yarn, how it would have gone through the stitches if we were actually knitting this row. And you don't want to leave a seam here because that would be very uncomfortable on your toes, which is why this Kitchener stitch is so popular for sock toes. Okay, any questions about my Kitchener? You can see there as I go along. As if to knit, as if to purl, as if to purl, as if to knit. All right, almost to the end here. Almost to the end. And now I have my 2 stitches left. So we'll do the same thing. We'll do a knit and then a purl and then close it up. And there we go. And there's our happy little sock toe. And what you'll find is sometimes you have a little bit of an ear that wants to pop up here. So I always take my yarn and run it through and kind of pull it just a little extra tight right there, because that helps to fold the ear in so that you don't have a funky toe end. And then at this point I just go ahead and I put my ends in. So usually I just move my yarn over to a good point, and then just like we're duplicate stitching for darning our socks, I just run some extra along those stitches. Run some extra, run some extra. Yeah. And then I just sort of weave my ends in until I'm happy. And I actually really like duplicate stitching. It's very calming. I should darn some socks today. I know. I like to darn socks and I like to Kitchener stitch. And there we go. And there is our happy little sock toe. And I probably could have snugged that up just a little bit more as I was going, but that's all right. It looks pretty good. At this point, I also usually go ahead and I weave it in my ends on the top as well. So there we go. There's our happy little sock. So we have made a sock together today. Okay, so does anybody have questions about like how to fit socks to your feet, or about gussets or heels, or top down versus toe up, or you know, how to fit socks to your feet a little bit better, where to take measurements? Is there something I didn't cover that I need to? That's always a possibility. I try to think of everything, but I am fallible and I do make mistakes. So sometimes I just need a little extra help to make sure that I get it all done. What do you think? Anyone? No? No? Okay, well, Wednesday, what should we do Wednesday? Should we do more tatting? We could do more tatting. Or I could get out my spinning wheel and we could do spinning. What else could we do? I usually have Tina crochet. I'm really rusty on crochet. Although I suppose we could watch the really rusty crocheter try to remember how to do everything. That could be fun, right? Or we could have a chat session and I could talk about, you know, some of my favorite yarns that we carry right now. And, I could, you know, show you how I measure my swatches, because I'm going to make a swatch for my Elroy shawl. I know, I'm actually going to swatch for it. I'm going to swatch for it because I want to make sure that it comes out the way that I want, since I'm using a very different yarn than what I originally did when I designed the shawl. So it's very important. Well, I don't know exactly what we'll do on Wednesday. We'll figure it out. It'll probably be more of a chat session. I'll try to find something small to teach, but it'll probably be more of a chat session. And then I'm trying to think. July 6th. Wow. It's almost the 4th of July. July 6th, we will start the Elroy shawl knit along. So I will try to make sure that I have my swatch done, and we talk about gauge swatch and choosing different yarns and altering the pattern if you want to alter the pattern a little bit. So we'll look at all of that on the 6th, and we'll prep for our lace knit along. So that sounds like fun. I'm trying to think, what else do I need to do? We have some books on sale, some books that are 25% off. So Curls, Curls 2, Curls 3, and also my book, Froth and Foam, which I'm not sure I have one up here. Doesn't look like it. Anyway, Froth and Foam, also on sale. That's my second book. 25% off at Black Sheep. And then we also have some books that are 40% off. I think it's One Piece Knits and the Debbie Maycomer series are 40% off. And we have a bunch of yarn and clearance that we are moving along so we can try some new stuff. So that's fun. The IOLI Unconvention is coming. So if you are not a member of the International Organization of Lace Inc., you should think about it, because the convention's coming and you'll be able to participate no matter where you are, because it's going to be all online. So that should be really fun. There should be some really good talks about bobbin lace and hopefully some tatted lace, and we'll be there as a vendor. We're going to be an online vendor. That'll be super fun. I'm trying to think what else is going on. Let's see. Talked about Tina's knit along. Got lots of knit alongs that are happening. I'm probably going to make more socks, not gonna lie. I at least have to make the mate to this one so that I have a pair of socks. But there's a good chance that I'll make more socks, because I am really in a sock making mood right now. What else do we have going on? I don't know, there's just so much happening. Tina moved, and she's going to start taking appointments soon, and she'll be doing some backyard group social distancing kind of stuff. So yeah, there's just all kinds of fun things that are happening in addition to the Slow Yarn Crawl. So yeah, don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. Make sure that you have liked our Facebook page. Make sure that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel, because I am trying to make sure that I put up our videos on YouTube too. Yeah, it is just all kinds of fun at Black Sheep all the time, and I look forward to seeing you again on Wednesday, because today is Monday. Yes. And we'll get some more stuff done. And if anybody has any tips on how to keep deer out of your garden, I could really use it, because I've had the same deer in my garden 5 nights in a row, and I've tried all kinds of things to get rid of this deer, and yeah, it's eaten a lot of stuff, and it's made me very unhappy. So I could really use some advice on how to get rid of the deer, and unfortunately I cannot permanently remove it, because I would have to have a permit, and I've been denied a permit, although I did try to get one. So anyway, any ideas, I would be delighted to hear them. You can contact me at Kelly @blacksheep ATORENCO.com, or you can message me through our Black Sheep Fiber Emporium page. And that also goes for if you have any suggestions for things that you would like to see Tina and I teach, or chats you would like to have in the future. So I will see you next time. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep crafting, do whatever you need to do to feel that little bit creative. I mean, I'm making plain Jane socks, but it's very soothing. It's very soothing. So, I mean, I don't feel like I'm making anything fancy, but at least I am making socks, and they're going to be so appreciated by the people who are getting them. Right, Heather? Yeah, you better watch one of my videos sometime, because your socks are on here all the time right now. Anyway, I will see you guys on Wednesday, and we'll just keep plugging along doing these videos.